Hey guys, so today is Sunday and I will be doing live today, and hopefully we will have enough bandwidth for everybody to be able to pop in and ask questions. I'm not going to be standing in front of the stove. I'm not going to be knitting or spinning. I'm just going to focus on your questions, and hopefully you guys feel a little bit satiated on the information that I can give you at this point, which is not very much. So I'm in the big house right now. I have a lot left to do. We have windowsills, you can see, we still don't have furniture in the big house. And a lot of people have been asking questions about why did we take the Elmira back in? Why are we putting the rocket stove in the basement if we are just selling the house? And the answer is, we don't really know what we're doing with the house. The work that I have to do to get it ready to sell it, to get ready to rent it, or to get ready to live in it, it's all the same work. Hey, Kayla. And so that's pretty much the only answer I really have is we brought the Elmira in because if we're going to Airbnb the tiny cabin, we needed to take the Elmira out. It left the tiny cabin more open. And the only thing we really used the Elmira for was to store pots and pans, and then I used the propane attachment on it to cook. I have a camp chef out there in the cabin now for people with Airbnb to use. So there's still, nothing has changed out there except that we took the stove out. Hey, from Sepulpa. Who said that they're from Sepulpa? Hey, Gwen. Thanks, Andrea. Hey, Life in the UP. Hey, Geo Scholar, the Fifth World. Shannon, how are you guys? So pretty much that's it. We moved the Elmira out because it looks nice in the kitchen. It's fun to make videos with it in the kitchen. The range on it actually works a lot better than the stove that I have here in the big house, and so it's a joy to cook on, whether you're cooking on it with the propane attachment or whether you have it whether you have the chimney on and you're using it to heat your house. Hey, Ozark Permaculture, how are you? Glenn Okla, LLJ 1027, hello, hello. So, you're going to see us over the next several weeks. You're still going to see us in the house at times. You're going to see us in the cabin. You're going to see us in the smokehouse at times. And that's because we've got a lot going on. The house is coming along better all the time. Everything we had to fix, with one exception, was aesthetics. We put in new windows, so now we have energy efficient windows in. We took out the cracked concrete driveway because it was channeling water into one corner of the basement, and it hadn't happened before, but we had actually a little bit of wet carpet in a corner, which signaled to us that that's what was happening. So the only thing that actually needed to be done that was damage was just to take out that concrete pad and put in gravel. So even when it's just aesthetics, it takes a lot of time to do it. And we're just having a lot of fun making homesteading videos and showing you how if we're living here, I want to have my gardens in. If we're selling it, I want to have the gardens looking beautiful so that we can get a better price for the house. If we're going to rent it, I want to simplify the gardens and make them as easy as possible, because if somebody's going to rent them, I want them to be able to take care of it easily. And as you can, if you think through that, everything is exactly the same. Simplify it for my use, simplify it for a renter's use, simplify it for a new owner's use. I'm simplifying. The work is the same no matter what we decide to do. Hey, Sheila, or Shelia. Andrea said, have you featured a vegetable garden? So I have 1, 2, 3 gardens right now. Four gardens, 1 by the cabin, 2 in the backyard, and then 1 in the greenhouse. Is that what you mean? I do have all my gardens planted. Some of them are planted more heavily than others. Some are planted more successfully than others. It takes time to build up a hotbed, and it takes time to build up soil, unless you're just going to go and buy hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of soil to put in raised beds. It just takes time to build it. So I'm well on my way to having it built. We have a lot planted, and whoever is here, whether it's us, a buyer, a renter, an Airbnb, it's all the same work. So hopefully that's not too confusing for you guys. I know that is confusing to some people, because when you move the Elmira back in, people would kind of assume different things. We don't have it plumbed into the chimney right now because I do intend to use the rocket stove that Darwin is building right now and experiment with it to see how it works, because it's the new version of the rocket mass heater, the Aircrete rocket mass heater. It would be in this house, and by September we have cold nights if it's a normal year. And so it would give us an opportunity. It wouldn't allow us to play with it in our sub-zero temperatures, which is what we get in January and February. We would get very cold temperatures in January and February. So if we're not living in the house at that point, I won't be able to test it that much. But if we're still here in September, I'll be able to test it. And Darwin needs somewhere to put it anyway. The reason that we're not making a hole in the ceiling for the Aircrete chimney is because if we aren't here, then we don't want to be making more holes in the house. So we're going to plumb it out the window the same way that we did in the little cabin. And that way, all we have to do is, if the new owners or if we had renters that didn't want to use wood burning stove, we'd pop the insert back out, and the rocket mass heater is portable. We would just dismantle it and take it out, and you wouldn't even know that we'd had it in there. It's going to be very simple, and this is why we're doing it. It's a fun adventure with no harm, no foul, and we do need somewhere to test it. So that's why we're doing it. We're just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, and we're not making any commitments because we don't know what's happening with John yet. He has had some interviews here locally. He is still back in Oklahoma, so he's had some telephone interviews for businesses here locally, and we should know on that next week. So John might still be in Oklahoma for the summer and fall, or he might be here. And that's why we can't make a decision, why it's so hard for us to give you guys a clear answer on what we're doing, is because at this point we're happy, we're healthy, we're safe. We miss John, but that's really the only downside, is just that at this point we really miss John. Let's see. Gwen said, are you coming back to Oklahoma? At this point, I'm not planning on it. Our health and happiness is much better here than it is in Oklahoma because of the amount of time we like to spend outside. We were there in Oklahoma for almost 3 years, on and off. And I think the bed bugs were really what turned me against it. Is we dealt with things really well. We enjoyed the area. We had friends there. But as far as being physically comfortable, the fact that we had bed bugs in both the apartments that we stayed in, and then when we got to Idaho, we didn't have them, was very, very physically difficult because it took us a long time to figure out what was happening, and we're miserable. And then for our animals, we had horses, so we were trying with the horses because we felt like the horses would be safer than if we tried to rent property and keep goats and chickens where it wouldn't have been next to the apartment. We were very strategic about it. So we tried horses, and we had a lot of vet things go wrong with them there that I felt like I didn't know the area well enough yet to feel like I would be comfortable doing goats and other things. The horses did relatively well there. But at this point, as far as for the welfare of my animals, I feel so much more comfortable being here than being there. It's just a very different environment in many ways. It wasn't that I didn't love it, because we did. But what really makes my heart sing, homesteading, is what makes my heart sing. And a lot of the things that we were having to learn there in Oklahoma were very difficult lessons for somebody who likes to be outside as much as I do. Andrea said, almost forgot about your hotbeds. Love seeing how everyone's growing. Yeah, and we have in-ground gardens too. We have the in-ground garden where the first hotbed used to be. We dismantled it and filled the new hotbeds with what was the old hotbed stuff, and then we planted into the ground in the space that would have been under that first hotbed, and it's doing very well. And then the greenhouse, I've got things planted out in the greenhouses, and that's a video I didn't realize I didn't upload yet, and I need to upload it. Hey, thinking of others. All right, so, sorry, my nose is super itchy. And that's it. We've got lots of fruit coming on. This time of year, I'm not buying fruit because we have the Nanking cherries, we have apricots, we have peaches, we have, what's the other thing? Plums, prunes, strawberries. We need to build cages over the strawberries because the ducks are getting into them. And we did just go pick up 4 new Muscovy ducks that I am super excited to have. It's if you don't want to weed whack, if you don't want to be mowing, have an animal that wants to eat grass. Hello, Jenny's Farm, Sweet Farm. Julianne Price said, what are kids wanting? What are the kids wanting? The kids would like to stay in Idaho, but they really miss their dad. If we miss our friends in Oklahoma, we don't necessarily miss Oklahoma. I haven't been here in the winter for 3 years, 3 solid years, I think. We haven't been here in the winter. We've been in Oklahoma, we've been in Florida, we've been in New Mexico, we've been in a lot of places, but not here in the winter. And so John and I are trying really, really hard to plan what it is we want to do in the winter so that he doesn't feel like it's wretched cold, and to give us a little bit of a break from the homestead. And so we're trying to plan some fun trips that would take us to warm climates in January and February when the walls are kind of closing in a little bit. We're kind of thinking that's what we want to do. I don't think there's anything wrong with winter, but I think there's also nothing wrong with having something to look forward to. If you have a season of the year that's more difficult than others, I don't think it's running away to go have a fun time somewhere else. Jenny's Farm, Sweet Farm said, will you bring your horses to Idaho? We're trying to figure that out. At this point, to have them shipped would cost $1,600 because of the new baby. It turns out Dragonfly was pregnant, and she did foal just about 3 weeks after we got here. And so I have a good friend there that actually is the one who sold Dragonfly to us. And she came and got Dragonfly, and she foaled there at her place, and they're taking very good care of her. But if we want to bring her here, it's going to be very expensive, $1,600 to get them here. And you have to do it carefully when she has a new baby with her. So at this point, we're just paying for her feed there. And the girls would be devastated if we had to sell her, but if it turns out that it's too expensive to get her here and it's not in our budget, we're going to have to sell them, which would be very disappointing. And we cried really hard. We did sell Gunner because of the expense of keeping them in boarding while we were gone. We didn't know how long I would be here. We didn't know if I'd be coming and just find the place in such a wreck that we didn't want to deal with it, and we just sold it as is. And then we did get here, and it turned out everything was just aesthetic, and it wasn't going to be that expensive to fix up, so we fixed it. But we didn't know that when I got here. Otherwise, I would have tried harder to sell the horses before I left. But I kind of had to leave everything up in the air with some flexibility, because at the time when I left, we still were waiting to see if we could buy that homestead in Oklahoma. We still had earnest money down, and we were waiting to see what would happen with that. So one of the options is that we thought we might actually be able to move the horses out to the property if we bought it. So there was just a lot up in the air. Hey, Mark, he's in Earthquakey, California. Hey, Central Florida Prepper. And then Semper Fi said, you guys travel a lot, your channel is a blessing. We do travel a lot, or we have up to this point. I find that I travel less and less well all the time. My body has started to see the signs of when we're going to travel, and it just kind of shuts down. At this point, I think if we were able to stay here for a year and rest and get everybody's health built up really well, eat a lot of good food that we've grown ourselves, sleep in our own beds, and not be leaving every 6 months to go between Idaho and Oklahoma. I think if we could rest for a year, we would be able to travel again. But at this point, I have no desire to travel anymore. It's hard to take your dirt with you, you know. Hello, Belle. Belle from Idaho. So, I'm not sure if you guys have any other questions at this point. I'm just kind of pretending that I live here. I mean, I'm not living in the big house right now. When we're here in Idaho, we live in the little cabin. There's no point to being here in the big house if John isn't with us. So we live in the little cabin, in the off-grid cabin still. And we spend a little bit of time in town with family. But for the most part, we're just out here at the cabin, and we're planting the garden beds and watering and taking care of the animals, and we really, really enjoy it. Hey Giles, hello from Beirut, Lebanon. So Gail said you seem happier when you're where you are now. It would be a shame if you move. I am very happy here. We've put a lot of work into it. We have changed the face of the property. The animals have changed the face of the property. We have amazing neighbors. We're surrounded by like-minded people, and our bills here are almost non-existent. We have almost no bills. And I love what I do. So the reason you see me happy here is because I'm happy here. And we were very happy to be with John in Oklahoma. But the way that we had things set up at that time, the joy that we had in Oklahoma was mostly from being there with John. It wasn't necessarily because we felt like at that point we were building a life there. It felt very temporary most of the time. So fun to sew 11. Hello from Arkansas. Hello, hello. Central Florida Prepper said, seasonal migration must be hard over time. Hope you guys can get a good foothold somewhere and build y'all a life there. Seasonal migration is very difficult. It was not difficult the first 2 times we did it, but I think this was like the 6th trip or something that we've made in the last 3 years. Back and forth. I think it's 1,400 miles, and every time I've done it, except for the first time, it's been solo. And we don't mind the trip, but it's very hard. It's very disconcerting if you're somebody who loves to garden to plant something and then not harvest it. To love on your goats for a few months, love on your chickens for a few months, and then leave and not have them anymore. Or to be in Oklahoma again and purchasing the livestock again, get the cages set up just in time to go back to Idaho. Building those relationships, building those processes, building the infrastructure is very difficult. But if we had a home in Oklahoma, if we had been able to purchase a home, then I think it actually wouldn't be that hard, because all you would have to do, if you had your infrastructure, if you had your fences, if you had your cages, if you had your furniture already, if everything was already set up and it was just you driving in to one place and staying for 6 months and then driving back and staying 6 months, if you already had all your infrastructure set up, I don't think it would be that hard. But for us, every time we go back and forth, we are setting everything up all over again, and that's the hard part. Let's see, Semper Fi said, if you're happy there, I think in the end you guys should be there. It all comes down to, what is the word in marriage? Compromise. It all comes down to compromise. John doesn't want to be here permanently, and I don't blame him. What I'm hoping is that we can find a happy medium for what we do in the winter that makes it so that we can enjoy being here but have it not be miserable for John. And I think that's going to have a lot to do with taking vacations in the winter and finding things in the winter here that we like to do. John used to we used to snowboard and ski and do snowmobiles and stuff like that. And when the girls came along, we stopped doing that because we couldn't afford it anymore. And then John hurt his back. So a lot of the physical things that used to be fun about Idaho for him, like snowboarding and water skiing and that kind of thing, they're just not an option anymore because of his back. So it's just, I mean, it's real life stuff. It's trying to feel it out. It's trying to negotiate. It's trying to find the happy medium so that everybody's happy instead of just one person. And the girls really love it here. We have so much family here. We have everything, our systems are built in here, so it's easy to take care of. But it is true. We get some really cold temperatures in winter, and John really doesn't like it here. So that's that. Bounty Hunter, we ended up selling Gunner because he's younger minded than Dragonfly was, and if nobody was working with him, then all the training we put into him was being wasted. And we had boarding that we were paying for. So we sold Gunner after we'd been here for about 3 weeks because we saw we were going to be here for a bit. I had not a lot of work to do on the house, but enough work that I was going to be here for a bit. And so we sold him, and that was very difficult. We cried a lot. And then it turned out the Dragonfly was pregnant, that she'd had a preg test, and it had been incorrect. It had said that she wasn't pregnant, but she was. So 3 weeks after we left, she gave birth to a little colt. And I had a friend who went and took care of her and picked her up, and so that was also why it was important that we sold Gunner, is because we had this new colt coming and it was going to be an issue having too many horses and not being there to take care of them. So Dragonfly and her baby Surprise is at a friend's in Cushing, Oklahoma, and we are not sure. We don't know. In the end, if things really worked out in that direction, we might be back in Oklahoma. So we don't want to bring the horses here to the tune of $1,600, only to turn around and have to ship them back to Oklahoma to the tune of $1,600. It doesn't make any sense. So we're leaving the horses there until we really know what we're doing, because we really don't know what we're doing. Central Florida Prepper said, your experience has really helped our plans. We will be breaking ground in Wyoming next spring. Going to be an adventure for sure. What part of Wyoming? My goodness, I grew up in Gillette, which is kind of by Sheridan. It's just flat, and it's coal and railroads and rodeo, and there are some very beautiful places in Wyoming. Gillette is not one of them. Sheridan's beautiful. Sheridan's gorgeous. So, Yugoslav Samadi, hi from Novi Sad, Serbia. Hello, how are you? Thinking Brother said, sending John a wonderful hello. I have him on my daily prayer list. Thank you so much. I'm sure he would appreciate that. It's really funny to talk to him as a single. He's not really single, but he's kind of living as if he was single right now, listening to the issues that he has with the dirty dishes and no kids to wash them, and missing his family, and going to church by himself and having everybody be worried about him. It's just been a really interesting journey to be a family with that much distance between us and having it be for such long periods of time. We have learned how to do it, but we would really like to stop doing it. We'd really like to have all of us be in one place for an extended period of time and be able to make decisions as a family again, instead of having us be, because I'm here, I'm with the girls, all the decisions are mine. And where he is, he's just himself, so all the decisions are his. And we've kind of had to negotiate all that in a very strange way. All right. Let's see. Semperfi said, pardon me. I totally understand. Cold weather and bad knees and backs is not fun. I wonder if there's a hobby or passion that would pique his interest. Compromise is good. You're a good wife and mom. Well, thank you. John has a lot of things that he's interested in. One of the things that's wonderful about his job now is that he loves computers. He loves to tinker with them. He loves everything about them. And so his work now is something that he really, really enjoys, and it doesn't hurt his back. He's working with good people. He's learning a lot. And so the fun thing is that now he's working in his hobby. He has some other hobbies, but he doesn't do them a huge amount right now because they take up a lot of space. He really likes to reload, and he likes to go shooting at the gun range and that kind of thing. But in the apartment, there wasn't really anywhere for him to be able to get things out and work with them. And so mostly they just stayed packed up. When we lived in this house, he had a full room downstairs that was his, and so he could set up his presses and his reloading bench and stuff like that. So if we were back in this house, I would assume that he would set all that back up, and he really did enjoy that. And he would have his computer monitor set up and all the fancy stuff there, and do his reloading, and those are things that he really enjoys doing. Central Florida Prepper said just north of Wamsutter, South Wyoming between Rock Springs. We drive through there all the time. That's the way I go when I come home or when I go back to Oklahoma, is we go right through Rock Springs and Rawlins. It's very pretty there. It more mountains. So that's exciting. Good for you. Very nice. If you're coming from Florida, that's quite the change though. My goodness. They have quite the cold weather there, but I mean, both of those places are quite beautiful. Alicia Clampett said, praying for y'all all the time. Thank you so much. What is in my hair? Probably my sunglasses. I would imagine that's what it is. I like to have them on in case I have a spontaneous attack of weed whacking that needs to happen. Shannon says Mike reloads also. Yeah, John really enjoys it. The girls have a lot of fun going out and going shooting with them. They both have 22s. And they have a lot of fun with that. And they have a shooting range here just not very far away. So it's pretty fun. So, any other questions? I'm trying to think if there's anything else. The things I'm most excited about within the next little bit of time is I'm really excited to see the rocket mass heater in the basement. I'm excited to see how well Darwin can have it fit into the decor of the house. How we can meld it into that room in the basement so that it looks like it belongs in the house and it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. I'm excited to see that. I'm not necessarily excited to set up the Elmira yet because a conventional wood stove gets so hot. And the thing we didn't like about it was that in order to damp it down at night so that it kept the house warm but didn't overheat us, you had down there and then it would smolder. And when it smolders, it builds up creosote. And we had 1 or 2 chimney fires a year because of that. And it always needed to be cleaned. It's a great stove as far as a conventional wood cook stove. It's a great stove, but it does not hold a candle to the rocket mass heater because you don't get creosote. And I can bake with the rocket mass heater by putting the aircrete oven on. And so all the things that my Elmira does that I love it for, I want to see if the rocket mass heater can do it better and safer. And make it so that the heat up here is cooler. Can it keep us warm all night with the bench? I don't know. That I'm very excited about that. The reason I'm excited to have the Elmira in the kitchen right now is because I think it's beautiful. I love having it in the kitchen. It makes me happy to see it. I'm not that excited about using it at this point because generally it's so warm that you kind of feel like you can't get away from the heat. Unless it's unless it's like 20 below 0 Fahrenheit. The stove keeps the house so warm that a lot of times we have to have windows open. Alicia said, haha, I saw the beads and didn't know. Yeah, it looks like some kind of weird thing, doesn't it? Central Florida Prepper said, wasn't raised in Florida, lived here the past few years for work, welder. I've worked out of Wyoming and North Dakota, South Dakota, oh my gosh. If you're raised in Carolina, you've really gotten around. I think is it North Dakota or South Dakota that's the really bad one? I mean, I'm from southern Idaho, south into North Dakota a couple times. Is it Sturgis? What is it? I'm trying to remember where we went through oh my gosh, it was so cold I thought we were gonna die. It was like 40 below 0. It was so cold. That's really fun. Alicia Clampett said the best time to buy a house in Oklahoma is in June. Every county has a huge sale for the courthouse from people that don't pay the land tax. Most land is from people that don't want it or had died and no one take it over. Well, and that's what had happened with us. Is the house that we wanted to buy, the man had passed and his family was now trying to sell it. And the only reason that we felt we were able to find it even was that they had put the wrong address on it. The grid system, they had an fantastic, I hope my battery isn't about to run out. It was a fantastic buy. It was 5 acres with a house that we really liked. I really wanted to paint it because I didn't like the gray color, but it was a good location to John's work. And we would have been really happy to get it. But what happened was, the purchasing progress became so drawn out and terrible because it was a manufactured home. There were lenders who couldn't lend on manufactured homes, and we got approved. It wasn't about us, it was about the fact it was a manufactured home. And then once we actually got the loan, it took us like 3 months to get the loan to go through. And then at the end, it turned out that there was a lien on the property and they couldn't find the title. they didn't have a clear title to the house itself. It had never been registered or something. And so in the end, we'd had our names on it for like 6 months or something. We'd had many months. And we'd done two, at least one extension, if not two extensions on the loan to try and get it. And then in the end, they couldn't get it. And so we canceled it. We got our earnest money back. And I'm not sad about it, because when we saw what a hassle it was to try and get a loan with the manufactured home, it gave me really cold feet, because if we ever wanted to sell it again, whoever wanted to buy it would have to be able to get that loan, and they had to jump through huge hoops to get a loan for that house because it was manufactured and it had been moved. The home had been moved a couple times, which is a no-no for manufactured homes. All right. Jane said, without the Elmira in the tiny house, what are you using there for storage? I have simplified. We've taken a lot of our own things out so that the shelving that I already had there would work for Airbnb. So I should probably shut that window because we're going to hear that. Most of what was in the stove was food for food storage. So I've left a few things in there for us to use on a daily basis, and I pulled everything else out and put the pans in a different place. So I'm having to reconfigure the kitchen in the tiny cabin. It's opened up a lot of space, and especially I'm happier with it because now instead of having the stairs that go down and there's the Elmira, if somebody tripped, I was worried somebody would hit their heads on the stove. If the stove was on and somebody tripped, I was worried they'd end up landing in the propane when it was on. And so as far as Airbnbs, I'm a lot happier not having it there at the base of the stairs. I did get the rails in. The handrails are all in on the one side of the cabin. People can get in and out of the bedroom. Let me close that window. Oh, goodness. My neighbor must have a project going on. I got the handrails in that go up to the bedroom. I don't have the handrails in that go up to the attic yet. But pretty much I'm bringing my spinning wheel out of the cabin because I don't want it to be destroyed by people with the Airbnb. We're tidying everything up. The girls are making a lot of money off of me right now with chores. They're working as hard as some adults can work. Trying to think. They don't always work hard. But they're making a lot of money with how hard they're working and how many jobs they have. It just makes me happy that they are learning to work hard, and seeing that when they work harder and they have a good attitude, they make more money. And so it feels like a puzzle piece that everything is coming together. I have so many options. We could Airbnb out rooms in the big house. We could Airbnb out the cabin while we slept in the big house. We could rent the whole thing. We could live in the upstairs and rent out the whole basement to college couples. There are so many different things that we can do because our bills here are so low again, that the sky's the limit. And until I have been able to finish the house and have a little bit of a breather, I don't really know what we're going to do overall. But I hope it will be for whichever way we go. Central Florida Prepper said, pretty cold in North Dakota on those oil rigs. Spit turns to ice. One of your reasons I love your channel, your stove videos are awesome. I do love a good wood stove. Anybody who's worked or lived anywhere in our region here in the Rockies, you love a wood stove because it is life. It is. But if you're up in North Dakota, oh my gosh, you are tough. We get some bitter cold in some of the areas around here. Oh my goodness. Alicia said the sale from the courthouse in June is that day. No waiting. That's incredible. There's been a lot of like foreclosure houses that we looked at, but our realtor told us not to go for them because people would come in with cash and outbid us. And so we haven't really gone for any of that kind of thing. But I will tell John about it. And thank you for telling me, Alicia, that okay, let me make sure I've reread it. Every county has a huge sale from the courthouse from people that don't pay their land tax. Interesting. Homestead Pioneer Way. Hello, hello. All right. So Other than that, everything's going good. I am planting a winter garden because at least to me, gardening is hope. And it costs almost nothing. As long as you have your watering system set up, even if all you have is a watering can, if you're planting a winter garden, it means you have hope for the future. If you're planting a spring garden, it means you have hope for the future. If you're planting a summer garden, it means you have hope for the future. Gardening is really about hope. It means I'm going to be here to harvest. And so, weather permitting, we'll hopefully have squash and things like that. We replanted a lot of squash because we had 2 really strong frosts that killed tomatoes and squash. I didn't use any walls of water this year. I just kind of stuck things in the ground and then didn't pay attention to them again, and thus we had to go buy a whole bunch of starts, which is not my favorite thing, but it's just what we did. And I'm really enjoying getting more seeds in the garden and playing with the greenhouse, and I've really enjoyed getting all my toys back out and getting them ready to use. All right, I'm a new subscriber. Would you do a video just walking around your property to give an overview? From here, I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see, but I'll try to do it from the house. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see out the windows, though. This is the house. There's the Elmira cook stove, and there's the chimney that it goes out of. It's a wood cook stove that has a propane attachment to it, so that it really is for off-grid all year round. You don't have to actually have wood in it to be able to use the range because it's propane, and it works so well. It is a fantastic range. All right, I don't know what you'll be able to see. There's the front. And we have food forest, we have chickens, we have our most conventional part of the house is the front, but we still have peach trees and prunes and hackberries and apricots and chicken coops, and then every piece of grass that we have stakes out there that allow us to graze the goats. So we have 2 stakes here in the front yard and 6 stakes up way ahead in the front pasture for goats. Let's see. I'll try and show you the food forest in the back. It would take me too long to walk around it. We only have 1.5 acres, but we do a lot with it. And hopefully you can hear me. There's the in-ground garden that underneath where the compost pile was for 5 years, so it's good soil. So there's the garden. There's the hotbed garden. There's the living fence. There's the chicken house with the chicken house greenhouse. It has a greenhouse on it. There's the cabin, that's the off-grid cabin back there, and there's the goat shed. And we have another chicken coop back right there. All right, our goat pasture is there. And it's much less than 1 acre. It's about 3/4 of an acre, but it grazes all 4 of our milk goats. We have more ducks. Right there is all the rabbit space. And then we have more rabbits underneath the deck. This is the smokehouse. It's close enough. Hi, kitty. It's close enough. I'll just show it to you really quick. What we did is this deck used to extend out to there. It was huge, and it gets very, very hot in the summer, so we never used it in the summer. And then this is the summer kitchen. And the reason we have the plastic up is because I can't film in here. It shows stripes on my face. We're drying wool in this. I washed it yesterday. Our sun oven is there. When we want to cook with the sun oven, we just bring it up here on the deck and cook with it. And then I have my range and my oven here and the kitchen area. And again, all this wood was completely free because we harvested it from the deck that was too large, and John built it for me. And then there's more of the food forest. And this is where we keep the goats in the winter, so they're close to the house. Hi, baby. It used to have fence, but we took it down and repainted the deck. And so I need to rebuild that fenced in area because it is nice to have the goats that close during the winter. All right, and that's it. You've probably seen the off-grid cabin well enough that you probably don't feel like you need me to show it to you right now, but it's that way. All right, you guys did an excellent job on the property. We've done a lot of work. And it's been a huge learning experience getting it to work. It's been a little bit here and a little bit there. Thanks, Alicia. Alicia Clampett said, how do you keep the bunnies from digging out? They are in cages underneath the deck. The reason they're in cages under the deck is because it keeps them cool in the heat. Do you have water for the ducks, pond, etc.? We have swimming pools, every space that we keep ducks in. We have kiddie pools that we change daily. And then they're also allowed to play in the water that comes off of the irrigation system. So they have new water in large amounts every day. Hey, Serrata Wood, how are you? Thanks, Kenny. All right, thanks for the overview. Nice property. Your garden is bigger than I thought in the videos I saw earlier this year. Lovely place. Yeah, we're working on it, and I'm planting new garden beds all the time. Greens, things like Swiss chard or peas or what else have we been putting in? Anything like radishes, you can plant those all year round unless you're in a really hot environment. We're not in a really hot environment, and so we can keep planting sugar snap peas all year. So anytime I have a free space, I just pop another seed in the ground and we keep on watering it. Let's see. So Jenny's Farm, Sweet Farm said, no wonder you're so happy there. What a wonderful place to live. You put a lot of sweat, hard work, and love into that homestead. It would be hard to leave. Yes, and it's enough work that I remember when we did leave it, I think it was the end of 2015, maybe the beginning of 2016, I don't remember. When we did leave it, it was with a big sigh of relief because my kids were not big enough to help yet. John had hurt his back, and so he couldn't do a lot of the things that I needed to have done. He was tired of being on the homestead, and I was exhausted trying to keep it up by myself. So when we did leave, when we first left in the RV to go to Florida and to take all those videos that were across the country, I was jubilant because physically I needed a rest. Now, after having been gone so long, my body really needs the work. And emotionally, I need a rest, the rest that you get from gardening. So now it feels like my brain is resting by being here, and my body feels better because I'm getting more exercise again. And so I don't think it was a bad thing that we left. I think it gave us a chance to recenter, decide what we wanted to do, and then realize that you can't really do everything on your homestead. If you try to do everything, if you try to keep every corner of your homestead abundant and beautiful and perfect, you're going to burn yourself out. And so the thing that I've learned in the 2.5 years, 3 years we've been doing this is pick your battles, fertilize all the work, and recognize there are some limits, that you have limitations, physical and emotional limitations to what you can do, and be happy with the things that give you the most reward. And that's what we're trying really hard to do, is to sit back, step back, and decide what gives us the most value and focus on that. All right. Bonnie Blue says, so this is a tour of the place you're trying to sell, or you're moving back there permanently? I missed the early portion, so my apologies if you already went over this. So one of the new subscribers asked for a tour of the property, so I showed just kind of the general layout of everything really quick. This is our homestead house. We're not living in it. We're still fixing it up. And because we don't know what's happening with John's work, there's a possibility we could be back here because he does have some interviews here locally. But then again, he might not be. And so many things are still an option. We could sell, we could rent, we could live in it ourselves. The work that I do right now is the same regardless of which one happens in the end. I still have to get the house finished. If I put in gardens that are beautiful, then it means that it sells easier for more money because people see what it can do. And if I'm going to be renting it, I want to be simplifying it so that a renter could take care of it easier. So everything I'm doing is working to the same end, no matter what that end is. So I was just showing it to you guys so that, because somebody had asked. Hey, Charles, how are you? Alicia said, hope you all come to Wilburton, Oklahoma. We have a lot of things to see in festivals here and down south. The Choctaws do a lot of family things that are free for everyone to enjoy. That's something we really enjoyed while we were in Tulsa, is that there's so many museums, there's the parks, and we really enjoyed where we were in Tulsa in that apartment because we had access to so many things. And in the tiny houses in the surrounding areas, we found some really amazing people. We do love Oklahoma, but I really struggle with the things that I was having to learn in Oklahoma to keep my animals safe and to have us be comfortable. So much to learn because it's like a foreign country, the difference in the climates. So even though I love the people there, some of my best friends live in Oklahoma. And I think it's a beautiful place. I just feel out of my depth. But that could be because everywhere we were living, it was temporary. You know, we lived in that tiny little bungalow in town, and then we lived in the apartment in town. And we never tried owning a property while we were there, and we never really lived out in the country while we were there. So our learning curve was probably a little bit jaded. But it feels like a crazy thing to do, to go just buy a property so you can see if you like the state. I mean, that seems like a little bit of overkill, doesn't it? Like, well, I want to see if I really want to be here, so I should go buy a property. And it's actually what we were trying to do. When we were in the apartment, the reason we wanted to buy that house was to see, do we want to live in Oklahoma? Do we want to be here forever? And it was such a complicated process, just because it was a manufactured home. It was such a complicated process that it was, we felt like it was foolish to continue with it. So probably the next best thing for us to do would have been to rent a place out in the country and do that instead. But there towards the end, it just got so complicated. It just was awful. Central Florida Prepper said, we will be building heavy duty houses out in Wyoming. Spring and summer grow season is just too short. Are you going to have them sunk? Did you see the guy? Where was he? Was he in North Dakota? Did you see the guy with the sunken greenhouses that was growing citrus? Because I think even with greenhouses, if you are not sinking them and having the geothermal, I would love to do geothermal. I would love to do that because in the winter time we have to supply some kind of heat, and it can get expensive. The way we do it is with the hotbeds, because the hotbeds heat up and they supply the heat. But if you're somebody who doesn't want to do hotbeds, did I ever share that video? I hope I shared that video. If you look at growing citrus in Wyoming, or growing citrus in North Dakota, or growing citrus in South Dakota, something like that, growing citrus in a sunken greenhouse in one of those states, it's amazing what he's done. And I really think that it's the secret, because we have friends out here just about 10 minutes from us, and we've shown it to you before. It was the LDS Prepper. He did the sunken greenhouses, the Walpinis. He did Walpini. Kind of. Our neighbor here, we have two neighbors here that did Walpinis, which is a sunken greenhouse. Our friend down further south, he did the geothermal, which was the piping that goes underneath the ground and then pipes up into your greenhouse. That's what he did. And he had great success with that too. So we've had people that have had huge success in our area, but they're always something geothermal related. Our greenhouse is done just fine, but it would be on rocket fuel if we had been able to sink it, or if we'd had the tubing underneath that was geothermal. I would be excited to see how it turns out for you guys. LOL, yes it is. I have lived here all my life and I'm still learning. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful place and you can grow so much, but I really struggled with the insects and people kept scaring the crap out of me about the snakes. So many Facebook pictures about crazy copperheads and pygmy rattlesnakes, and my kids live outside, not unless you're out in the desert. You have to be out in the legitimate desert in order to have rattlesnakes here. So there's just so many things that we don't have to worry about, and we don't have ticks. We had all sorts of ticks that we got on us, and I, with Lyme's disease and stuff, I just don't want to. I got very whiny about the bugs in Oklahoma. Bonnie Blue said, great response, thank you. I don't even remember what it was, but I'm glad you liked it. Jenny said, I've experienced that burnout you're speaking of. I'm trying really hard to step back and reevaluate what's high priority here on the farm and what can wait. Exactly. I had taken out so many water lines and cut trees, just killed my trees because I looked at it and I said, the amount of energy it's taking me to water these is out of proportion to the amount of benefit that I get from them. So I've cut those down. And I've actually added more water lines in the front because there's a possibility we might sell. And a lot of people want a conventional green lawn. And in order to, with my irrigation system, to simplify it and to give it more of what I really need to do in our situation now. What else have we done? We've limited ourselves to 4 goats, and we still probably have one too many, but we love them all. We can't bear to be parted with any of them, so we're holding on to 4. We finally have increased our birds enough that they're taking down a lot of the weeds so that we're not having to weed whack as much. I wish we had started earlier in the season, but we didn't get here till May, and we didn't actually get any birds until June. The secret is have many birds and have them where you want them to be taking weeds down early in the year, not later. You want them to be able to get those first little bits of grass. Let's see, what did I miss? Central Florida said, yep, it gets so cold you have to have it in the ground. I agree. Hey, Steve Patterson. Let's see, Semper Fi said, the folks who helped you look should have known that it was a possibility to be a complicated process, and there's ways to see if there's liens or restrictions on the property. You would think so. Oh my goodness. But we should have had our first indication when they put the wrong address on the house. What had happened was that the house was part of a trust, a very big trust, a very big, wealthy trust. And the house was being sold by the niece, I believe, of the previous owner. Previous owner had a lot of property, a lot of different properties that he owned. And this was his property that he lived on. He had paid cash for his house and hadn't kept records of where he got it from or where it had been. And that was where things got complicated, was that the descendants who were selling it knew nothing about the house. And there were no records. And that's where they listed it assuming that they would find the records. And then they got into it and everything had gone through, not smoothly, but it had gone through. Things that needed fixed were fixed. And then we were all ready to sign the papers. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute, we can't find the title. And oh, wait a minute, there was a previous lien, we're not sure if it got fixed. And so in the end, it was just that I guess there were some unforeseen things there because they weren't familiar with the property and there had been a death. And that's why it had been so complicated, was because there had been cash instead of checks that had bought the house, and then it had been moved, but they didn't know where it had been moved from or when it was moved. Stickers had been pulled off of the manufactured home so that it didn't show where it had been. And it was great. We really liked it. It was in great shape. The foundation was really good. We were super, super happy with it. And it's really sad. But at the same time, it's okay. It would have been very difficult to film in because the house needed a new coat of paint and we didn't have all the equipment we needed. We would have needed to spend thousands of dollars on appliances and lawnmowers and stuff. So we could have done it, but I don't think fiscally it would have been very responsible. We would have been a little in over our heads, not with the house, but the price of the house was good and we could afford that. But what happened was it didn't have a storm shelter and it got hit by tornadoes this year. That area did. It didn't have a storm shelter. We didn't have a lawnmower, and it was 5 acres that most of it was going to need to be mowed. So we needed a big lawnmower, and it didn't have any appliances, 0 appliances. And so we would have had to go out and buy new appliances. And so we felt like the budget was fine for the house itself, but for everything else, we probably would have been another 20,000 in, 15 anyway, to get it really whipped into shape. And it just felt like it would have been irresponsible. So we were grateful that it didn't go through. Let's see. Central Florida Prepper said, we're planning to run large stove piping underground from wood burner during winter. It looks good on paper anyway. Might be a fail. Well, and you never know till you try. You really don't. I think there's so many cool ways. If you get a chance to go look up that one about the guy growing citrus, look it up, because he didn't even need a wood burning stove. They just sunk the greenhouse low enough that it got below the frost zone, the frost line, and so they just really literally just used the geo. If I had help from somebody that was really, if Darwin didn't have a million other projects, I think it would be really cool to build something like that with Darwin. I need to use, I have an aircrete, I have a foam mate, and we're actually going out to film at Darwin's tomorrow from the Honeydew Carpenter. And I'm going to see if I can't use my foam mate for the first time, because I have one. And I'm just a little nervous about using it, that I'm not going to get the mix right. So we're going to play with it tomorrow when we go out and look at the chimney that he just did. Bonnie Blue said citrus in the snow. That is in northern Nebraska, so super cold there too. So everybody go look at that citrus greenhouses. We have them here too, but that's because of the hot springs. We have what's it called? We have volcanic activity, tectonic activity here, and we have hot spots that are just south of us. So people have artesian wells and hot pockets of water, and they do amazing things with it in our area. And they do grow citrus. They have to have them covered in greenhouses, but we did a video about citrus and about bananas and other types of greenhouses that are just incredible, that people have harnessed that power. Let's see. Alicia, I assume you talked about snakes. They ain't that bad. You just have to keep an eye out. Well, we didn't see any while we were there, but we had a lot of warnings from people that we needed to be careful. Bonnie Blue said, Curtis Stone, the urban farmer, does a combination wall peony and geothermal. I really like Curtis Stone. Hey, okay. Hey, Stephen. Hey, N Rubino 3. Okay, see you, Alicia. Central Florida Prepper said, I'll check it out. Thank you. I think our frost line is like 3 feet on the property. See, ours is 6 to 8. Our frost line is 6 to 8 feet down. And so whenever we put in water lines, that's how low we have to put our water lines, is 6 to 8 feet. Semper Fi said, sometimes things like this, I feel God telling you, nope, not in my plan, got something better. Well, and that's how we felt too. We had roadblock after roadblock. I'm trying to remember what the first one was. Oh my gosh. We had so many roadblocks on that property. We had inspections that didn't go right, and we ended up having to do mold remediation. There were spots of mold in the house. And then we had, what were some of the other things? We had, and the biggest one was the financing, because it was manufactured. That was the biggest roadblock. And then it turned out that wasn't the biggest roadblock. The biggest roadblock was there was no title. There was just so much that we were just like, are you kidding me? It's time to step back. It's time to step out of this. This is not what we're meant to do. Walk away. Hey, Ecocentric Homestead, how are you? So, I don't really know what else to say. The girls are at church right now, and I wonder what time I'm supposed to go pick them up. I should probably go look. Yeah, I better go pick up kids from church. All right, thanks for popping in, guys. Hopefully that cleared up some of the confusion. Elizabeth over at Oh no, Elizabeth, what's the name of your channel? Little Farm Big Dreams. Elizabeth over at Little Farm Big Dreams. She helps me with my comments on my channel, and she said people are really confused. So I thought this would be a good way to spend a little bit of time and watch for these Aircrete rocket mass heater videos that are coming up. And I'm trying really hard to get around to edited videos instead of just lives. So hopefully that'll happen soon. And we'll talk to you later.